An incident of murder occurred in a village in Phichit province, but the perpetrator could not be apprehended and brought to justice. As a result, the spirit remains bound, unable to leave, causing it to haunt the villagers. Before we dive into our scary story, we would like to ask everyone to like and subscribe to support us in continuing to bring you more terrifying tales in the future. This story is about Percy, who told me the events that occurred about 20 years ago. At that time, Percy was still a teenager. In the village where he lived, there was the daughter of the village headman named Jasmine. Jasmine was very beautiful and had many suitors, but none of them captured her interest. Consequently, even at the age of 30, she was still unmarried. Nevertheless, she continued to attract the attention of both young and older men. One day, officials from the district office came to survey the area for constructing a weir near the headman's house. During their survey, they stayed at the headman's residence. While staying there, they met Jasmine. As one of the officials grew closer to the headman, he began to pursue Jasmine. Before long, Jasmine was won over and they agreed to date. Eventually, the district officials approached Jasmine's family to formally ask for her hand in marriage and set an auspicious date for the wedding. A few days before the wedding, an unexpected event occurred. One night, a man from another village, who had been courting Jasmine for many years without success, cycled to her house and called out to her. Jasmine came out to talk at the front gate. After a short conversation, the man cycled away, and it was unclear what they discussed. Shortly after, Jasmine took a bicycle from her house and rode off. Jasmine's mother, seeing this, called out, asking where she was going so late at night. Jasmine replied that she was going to visit a friend in the Cam village, which was less than a kilometer away from her own village. When Jasmine went out, time passed until midnight, but she still hadn't returned home. Her parents began to worry, so they drove to her friend's house to look for her. But her friend said she hadn't been there. Both the headman and Jasmine's mother were increasingly concerned about their daughter's safety. That night, the headman gathered people from the village to help search for Jasmine. There was a spot outside the village where a bamboo forest lined the road, and opposite the bamboo forest was an open field. Everyone searched with flashlights, scouring the bamboo forest and the surrounding fields, but they couldn't find her. The next morning, they contacted the police for assistance. This time, more people joined the search, but no matter how hard they looked, they couldn't find Jasmine. The villagers all feared that something bad had happened to her. Then, one of the villagers suggested consulting a medium for help. When they arrived at the medium's residence, the medium immediately told them to return to the bamboo forest and search thoroughly. The medium was certain they would find Jasmine there. Upon hearing this, Jasmine's mother was so shocked that she fainted, because if Jasmine was still in the bamboo forest, it meant something terrible must have happened. That day, everyone went back to search the bamboo forest once more. They walked deep into the forest until they found a pair of shoes. Continuing further, they discovered another shoe near a water-filled pit behind the forest, which was covered with water hyacinths. In the pit, they found Jasmine's body floating in the water. She was wearing black pants, the same pair she had on when she left home. Her upper body was bare, and horrifyingly, from her chest down to her navel, her body had been cut open and her internal organs removed. Everyone was shocked by what they saw. Soon after, they heard a squishy sound of something falling to the ground. Slowly turning towards the sound, they saw Jasmine's intestines, internal organs, and other body parts that had been hung on the bamboo tree, now scattered all over the ground. Some of these parts had already been pecked at by birds. The villagers, not knowing what else to do, cut down some trees to make a raft and carried Jasmine's body back to the village. The police took the body for an autopsy. It was found that her body had not been sexually assaulted. It appeared to be a straightforward murder. However, what was even more unusual was that her forehead had a deep knife cut in the shape of a cross, extending to the skull, and it was unclear why this was done. After that, Jasmine's body was given a religious funeral. During this time, the police tried to gather evidence to catch the culprit. At that time, Jasmine's mother was the most devastated. She cried for many days. After Jasmine's funeral, the haunting by her spirit began. In the village, there was a man named Uncle Sam who liked to drink and fish at night. One day, he rode his trusty bicycle to go fishing as usual. He pedaled along, singing drunkenly. When he reached the bamboo forest, he suddenly heard a voice calling, "Uncle Sam, Uncle Sam." Being fearless, he stopped and looked towards the sound. The moon was quite bright that night, illuminating the surroundings. He saw a naked woman walking out of the bamboo forest, staggering as she moved. Uncle Sam, help find the person who killed me," she said. As Jasmine walked closer, it became increasingly clear that her stomach had been cut open, with her internal organs hanging out. Even though Uncle Sam was a fearless man, encountering such a sight made him panic. He abandoned his bicycle and ran back to the village. He shared his experience with the villagers, but some believed him while others didn't, thinking he was just drunk and imagining things. When Jasmine's mother and the headman heard about this, her mother became even more distraught, unable to bear the thought of her daughter becoming a ghost that haunted the villagers. She fainted from the distress. As time passed, more people began to encounter Jasmine's ghost more frequently. On one occasion, some village elders were returning from a district meeting on motorcycles. There were 2 motorcycles, each carrying 2 people. As they passed the bamboo forest, both motorcycle headlights suddenly went out simultaneously, forcing them to stop and check their bikes. While checking the motorcycles, one of them lit a cigarette. The smoker thought he saw someone's legs floating at the edge of his vision and quickly turned to look, but saw nothing, assuming it was just shadows from the tree branches. After a while, unable to find the cause of the problem, they decided to ride back to the village in the dark. As they were about to get back on their motorcycles, they heard a splattering sound. All 4 of them heard it. They slowly turned towards the sound, but saw nothing but emptiness. Then, a woman's voice came from the top of a bamboo tree, saying, "Please pick up my intestines." Everyone looked up but still saw nothing. No one dared to speak because the elders knew it was taboo to acknowledge strange noises at night. Suddenly, one man in the group pointed to the ground and said, "This is the sound we heard earlier." They all turned to see a pile of intestines and internal organs scattered on the ground. Then, from the opposite side of the field, they heard a loud splash, as if someone had jumped into water. They looked towards the sound and saw water splashing up, as if someone had indeed jumped. The field had standing water about knee-deep. At that moment, everyone felt uneasy, but then they heard the sound of splashing water again, as if someone was running through it. Terrified, they all ran from the spot immediately. After that, stories about Jasmine began to spread even more. One day, on a major Buddhist holy day, there was a madman in the village who often slept at the village pavilion. This madman spoke incoherently and begged for food from people. Around 4 or 5 p.m., he suddenly ran around the village shouting, "Tonight Jasmine will come back! Jasmine will come back! Tonight Jasmine will come back!" He then ran to the headman's house, shaking the fence, and said, "Tonight Jasmine will come back. Jasmine misses home. Tonight Jasmine will come back." Then he disappeared into the village. Everyone in the village was very scared because this madman usually didn't speak clearly, and when he did, it rarely made sense. They were deeply unsettled as to why he suddenly spoke about Jasmine so coherently. As the sun began to set, fear gripped everyone in the village. No one dared to go outside, and every house quickly shut its doors and turned off the lights, trying to go to bed as early as possible. Around midnight, the dogs in the village started howling in long, eerie tones from the village entrance. Then, there was the sound of something being dragged along the road. The village was so quiet that the dragging sound was clearly heard by everyone nearby. Curious villagers opened their doors and windows to see what was making the noise. They saw a woman wearing black pants and with a bare upper body. Her face was dark and indistinguishable, but everyone knew it was the spirit of Jasmine. Jasmine was dragging a black sack with one hand. She walked, dragging the sack until she reached the center of the village. Then, she opened the sack and took something out. Inside the sack was another woman's body, also wearing black pants. The woman in the sack slowly stood up, revealing a headless body, and stood next to Jasmine. Jasmine then started feeling around as if searching for her head, while the other body wailed loudly, filling the entire village with its cries. The headless body stood next to Jasmine, and both of them slowly walked towards the headman's house, which had its lights on. The headman, hearing the commotion, grabbed a shotgun and yelled at Jasmine's ghost, "Why are you haunting the villagers? Why don't you haunt the person who killed you?" He shouted angrily and fired several shots into the air. Throughout the night, the villagers continued to hear Jasmine's wailing, and occasionally, it sounded like coconuts falling. The haunting continued all night, leaving everyone in the village sleepless and terrified. The next day, the village headman went to a revered monk to ask how he could help release his daughter's spirit to a better place. The monk said, "She can't go anywhere yet. If the bamboo forest hasn't caught fire, she will still be here because it's the place where she died. But she is struggling not to stay here." The headman then asked, "Where does she want to go?" The monk replied, "She wants to go home. She misses her siblings." In the end, the headman decided to burn down the bamboo forest completely. However, some people still encountered Jasmine's spirit. Some who drove past the burnt bamboo forest would see a woman lying against a termite mound. This continued for several years until the incidents gradually subsided, and no one saw Jasmine's spirit anymore. Regarding the case, the police said they couldn't find the perpetrator because there was no evidence. They tried questioning suspects from a neighboring village, but it was to no avail. The case remained unsolved and was forgotten along with Jasmine's spirit.